Good morning, guys. Welcome to the Debate Club. This is a platform where we all engage in healthy debates and discussions every week. The topic for this week is media companies shouldn't portray their opinions on the news. Agree or disagree? So, in this topic, we're going to have two sides basically, where we agree that media companies shouldn't be portraying their personal perspectives on the news. So, this accounts for news being factual and not just based on uh, perceptions and opinions of individuals or companies, so that the public can have an objective view on whatever is going on in the country, outside of the country, and so that the public can develop their own opinions based on facts and not mere opinions. While on the other hand, there is an argument that media companies also have a freedom of expression and they can present their own opinions on whatever the facts are, and that can be portrayed on the news. And there are also arguments that such opinions being displayed on the news also helps the viewers understand complex topics more easily. So, with that context in place, we are going to start the session, and the floor is open for debate. People who wish to speak will have to use the reaction button to raise their hands. All right, Samaj, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Rose. First of all, I would like to say that this is an excellent topic and a very timely topic, given the spotlight that is there in recent days on journalistic integrity and fake news and mainstream versus alternate media and free speech. Yeah, first I'd like to say that this is a very excellent and timely topic. Now, coming to the topic itself, uh, I think that media companies, the viewpoint that the media companies should not portray their opinions on news, I disagree to this motion. So I think media companies should be able to portray their opinions on news. So the reason why I think so is, some of the reasons they've already been mentioned uh, by Rose, like how uh, by allowing the media companies to publish their opinion, there will be more transparency, and the consumers of the news will become more aware about the biases and the agenda of media companies. So that is why I think they should be able to portray their opinions also. To elaborate more on this point, so the bias of the media companies, they they exist in the news that they cover, and this bias, it exists with or without the presence of opinion pieces being published. So if the opinion pieces are allowed to be published, then this hidden bias, it becomes more apparent and more viewers will become aware of this. So speaking a bit about the topic, how reporting on any news item it is done. So there cannot be a scenario when the news reporting is done. There cannot be a scenario where only the facts relevant to the concerned news item is presented. So the narrative, which encompasses the facts, that should also exist. That will exist. So given the fact that this narrative it exists, then this also implies that bias should exist. So whether it is individuals or media companies, so they might as well come clean about the bias that they harbor and not hide behind any facade of that they are objective, dispassionate reporter of facts, because it does not exist and it cannot exist. So why I say this is, like any news item about any topic, it should be of finite length. So this is the constraint that should definitely exist. So given this constraint exists, then media companies or the individual reporters, they should choose to give importance to some facts related to the news item over other facts related to the news item. And they're going to include the salient facts, and they're going to exclude the facts that they consider are less salient. So this process, it is done, and the very presence of this process, it implies like a collective bias or a individual bias, which will creep into the process. So as I said earlier, one might as well, like be forthcoming about the bias that they harbor. So, to give one example to better illustrate my point, take the topic of immigration or immigration to first world countries in particular. So, uh, any news article that publishes a piece on this topic, it cannot be fully free from bias. Uh, Forget about the opinion piece. Any news article to it cannot be fully free from bias. I'm saying this because immigration is such a complex and multifaceted issue. It involves many facets, such as illegal versus legal immigration, and high skilled versus low skilled workers immigration, and the interests of the immigrants versus the interests of the people in the host nation, and the economic impact of immigration, and various other impacts, such as social stability and crime rates and cultural homogeneity and uh, differential birth rates and demography. So these are just some of the facets of this multifaceted issue. So any news article on immigration, it can cover only the developments on only a small side of this multifaceted issue. So there is no point in trying to remove bias. I am nearly done. I won't take more than 30 seconds. So there is no point in trying to remove bias from a narrative, because it cannot be humanly achieved. So all that can be hoped for is to achieve less bias by ensuring that the facts related to the case are accurate. So that is all can be done humanly possible, and bias itself cannot be fully removed from any news article. So that will be my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samarth. Those are some great points you made right there. Sandeep, you can now go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so certainly the media companies can have their own, freedom of expression on their opinion. But historically, as a public, we look forward to consuming the information from the media outlets as news, right? We don't inherently think that uh, the media is portraying an opinion piece, and the responsibility does fall to the media to differentiate between the opinion piece, or is it just a news. Of course, the confirmation bias exists within everybody, but a media company is it's a group of people. It's not like they don't go out there and just put out their own confirmation bias out there to the public. They can do that, but my point is they have to be upfront about it, because they're not doing that, right? Whenever we see the news, we just think inherently that, okay, this is the truth, right? We don't have that filter put up. We don't have our guard always on that, okay, whatever the media company says, we have to think twice before believing them, because we are not used to have that, having our experience being with the news channels is not about the opinions, but it about the news. So as uh, as I can of course have to bring up the TRP ratings, which is of course the television rating point, right? It is the rating given by the BARC, which is called as the Broadcast Audience Research Council, and it is actually a conglomerate of all the advertisers and the media companies. It is not something that it is like it's not an independent, it's not a dependent, it's not a public entity, right? This is like a news mafia, if I can call it as such. So it is a mafia and it is a business for them. It is fine as far as they are upfront about it, but we didn't had a choice for a very long time. For last 20-30 years probably we had to switch to these channels and we had to believe what they're trying to say. But we have reached to a point at this time that many individual content creators and news reporters, they go out there and they put their confirmation bias and they're open about it. And of course they also give us news, and we do have an option as a consumer to switch to other sources of information. But by and large, media companies are, it is a business, and it is run by this no, advertisement mafia. So it does have a responsibility for the society. They just can't go out and they can put up their opinion, as I said before, but they have to be upfront about it. And they also have to understand the reality, that the thin veil of opinion they put out in front of every news that they report, right? So we cannot deny that it does have an effect on the society as a whole. And you might have come across many times, like somebody watch a TV, like let's say an older person, like 50-60 years old person who is not very accustomed to the new internet age. They watch TV and they think that it is truth, and they come out there and started talking about that as if it is truth. So it is a responsibility for the, and I think they are harming the society, and because it is a business model and we expect it not to be. So that's where I leave it. And I just wanted to add one more thing about TRP rating. It is like they take data points from 45,000 households within India, which is about 0.003% of population, and they give the rating based on that. The TRP rating is based on that, so it is technically very minute, and they're just taking the data point as a formality. But the TRP ratings, I'm sure they are rigged into the whoever pays the most and who has the most power into it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. Raghav, you can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So this is one of the topics that I feel like I have mixed feelings. I have things to say about both sides. Obviously, like when you look at it from a surface level, it does feel like you want the news media to be like uh, unbiased, or like they should withhold personal narratives, right? First of all, the way that the industry is set up, it is never the it's not never, but it's like predominantly, especially in India, it is not always the person sitting in front of the camera who has all these opinions. There are a few people who do that, but majority of the people, they're basically putting in news readers. These are people looking at a teleprompter and telling you things, and the opinions are made by somebody else in the background who are invisible to the public eye, but they have a large say in public perception. That is where the power of the media comes in. If you look at it historically, like there used to be a time when politicians were supposed to be the people of power that had to have their power checked, and the media's job was to do that, to check the power of the politicians. But today I feel like the most power exists not with the politicians, but actually with the media people. The people who own these broadcasting corporations have the biggest power. And there is this very popular adage that with power comes responsibility. And when these people are broadcasting whatever they're broadcasting, it has a huge impact on the perception of the public. So I definitely would say that they have to do it responsibly, but it does get like a little bit of there's a gray area here as to what is responsible. Do you hold a certain genuine viewpoint that you must keep aside in reporting things in an as unbiased a way as possible, or do you be authentic and then share your research and perspective exactly the way you find it, so that like you can broadcast your point of view? um, this is a That's why I say I have a mixed feeling about this, because it's not an easy question to answer. Because just because they have the power, it doesn't mean that your opinion trumps that of the others. Because when you broadcast at a large scale, you are like you're gaining a large visibility. It's not just like random people having their own opinions. when you have that level of power, you have to exercise a certain level of integrity in how you present things. But the other thing is that if you look at, I mean, if you try to imagine what it would be like if all the media corporations were just, sharing information in an unbiased, or like, trying to be comprehensive. Everybody says they're unbiased, and they'll try to, present both sides and things like that. But if you think about it, like all the media, all the popular media channels that we have today, whether it is like newspapers or this or that, I think newspapers are typically less sensational, but on TV, sensationalism actually does sell. I can't imagine anybody watching Doordarshan news on a large scale, because Doordarshan news is that kind of like, unbiased reporting. The person reading out the news does not have any personality of their own. They can be easily replaced and it would still, continue the same way. But if you take something like Times Now, or some other platforms, these people have a personality. They have the authority to speak on something, and people would recognize a shift in tone or shift in stance, and these things will have an impact. So I personally see these companies as entertainment organizations. Their primary goal is entertainment, and they are like in the specific niche of like informative entertainment, and they are just, they do have the right to share. But also I agree with what Sandeep said regarding the responsibility to discern these things comes from the viewers. I don't think that you should coddle the viewers and, try to say that like if you don't withhold your narrative, then they may easily get influenced. I think that does happen, but I think it's the responsibility of the viewers to pick a side. But the unique problem that happens with this is that now you have like multiple channels with multiple narratives running, and people all gravitate to that one channel that kind of confirms their bias. So now it becomes a problem where you have like, echo chambers, where people who are following NDTV will have a certain point of view, people who are following Times Now will have a certain point of view, and like this, you have like groups. They're like clans and tribes of people with ideologies, and that is the problem. I just want people, you can share your opinion, but I want to see both sides represented equally and on the same table. So that is what I would say would be ideal.
Thank you, Raghav. Sharath, please go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, as Raghu mentioned, I am also in a mixed feeling, and I would say yes, there for today's time frame, and no for 20 years ago. Like when we take the example of Doordarshan, they will just read out the names and read out the news as how it was, and people. There was no options for most people. We had only one or two channels, and we had a trust in them, and so that was fine for that time. But if we take today, so people are expecting as a spice in everything. So they want something new wherever we go. It's not just a news channel. Maybe if you go to job or if anywhere in this world of AI, they're expecting something new. And yeah, there's as of today, there's no problem in media expressing their own viewpoints. But the problem comes is for the sake of TRP, they'll be started to get biased or polarized towards some one or the other thing. Like when I say polarization or bias, it ultimately comes to politics. And most of our news channels spend most of their time in politics. And so as the news channel also has to change, shifting their topics to some other things, and also the audience as well. And we have multiple topics like science, space, education, and if you start putting those things into the front line, so obviously in the initial phase, the channels may not get TRP or like the viewers, but going forward, definitely this is expected. That's how the trend changed from like DD national to multiple public channels. And I would say both news channels and the audience has to change and one more thing, like most of the public news channels are owned by political leaders or like rich people, I would say, and employees working there will be under the what I can say limits, restrictions to reveal, or like let's say if it's opened by one political party, they cannot that news channel cannot go against them, no matter what's the reality is. So I would also expect a government like political neutral entities like Doordarshan to be more effective in terms of expressing their opinion than not just uh, how it was 20 years ago. So, like we have NASA, we have ISRO, we have other entities like telecom entities, BSNL, which are neutral towards any political parties. They are just doing their service effective. So those kind of news channels and medias, if they come into the front line, so that would definitely create some good balance in society. Yeah, my overall conclusion is yes. For today's generation, they can express their opinion. Yeah, they have to express. Otherwise, no media will not survive. And yeah, and the media has to focus not just on the has to focus on other aspects of the society and not limit just to politics.
All right, thank you so much, Sharath. I'll now let Sharath Kumar go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, hello all. So, basically, regarding the topic, should media be biased or should they be polarized? I mean, if as it was also highlighted below that this is more of a concern even in India, but I say that this is not just a concern in India, but this was a issue globally. Even the media houses, 50 years back, 60 years back, even the US, the top media houses in US was polarized towards one particular party. Even if we take the case of Hindenburg, I see for some reason they are uh, s- ba- biased or anti-biased towards anti-India opinions. And they, unlike, I mean, I didn't see Hindenburg reporting any cases of US companies, but somehow they have a fetish for Indian companies. Is it good for Indian companies to be more fair? It would be good, but somewhere I see there is a biasness. But regarding the topic that should a newspaper be, should they give their opinion. I mean, opinion and bias is two different things. The my take is that it is okay for a the media to give their opinion, but when they are biased, their opinion gets influenced. Why I'm saying that it is it in some aspect it is good for them to give their opinion. Like as Raghav and Sharath also mentioned that hardly anyone watches Doordarshan because they're at the end they're just a news readers now. But taking some of the examples where the opinions did impact uh, to arouse the mass emotions, where I would take the case of Sushant Singh Rajput murder case few years back, which had it been just been reported like, okay, there was a one Bollywood actor murdered on so and so date period, wouldn't have been such a mass movement. But the amount of emotions that was built by the media, the amount of opinions they had given, uh, because in the absence of hard facts against the people who could behind it, the news media can only give opinions, right or wrong, but that opinion did make an impact to take the case forward. Even in the recent the Kolkata rape case, one of the issue that's in the rape case in the hospital. I mean, it was the duty of media, and they ensured that they put the flash the news repeatedly, and that uh, with their opinion that they were able to make this as a mass movement. Even in cases like encroachments on India, China borders, I mean, if that is just reported like any global news reporter do that, there is a skirmish between the army of India and China. Yeah, the people may not get connected towards that, but then giving their opinions, I think it does make an impact to get the interest of the mass towards that. subject. So I would like to end my statement with this.
Thank you so much, Sharath. After hearing all the speakers, I personally, at this point, have an opinion that I think news being completely objective, like one of the previous speakers mentioned, is like an ideal scenario, which may never really come to be because at the end of the day, the people working in media houses or individual reporters are just humans at the end of the day. And there will always be personal opinions and perspectives on whatever they are speaking about, even if they are raw facts. So I think where we need to draw the line is that opinions without biases can be entertained in the news, but still, even unbiased opinions need to be separated from the raw facts of the news. Again, that is still a very ideal thing because, as somebody mentioned, nobody watches DD News at this point because it's just plain. And like Raghav mentioned, at the end of the day, this is all informative entertainment. So the more entertaining it is, the more audience we have as a news company or a media company. But at the same time, if there are like fan bases for these media companies who exclusively follow and believe what these media companies say, there is a high chance that we'll also face polarization in the society. And honestly, polarization is an issue where we as a society can be majorly impacted and most probably in a negative way. So personally, that's where I stand right now. And maybe I'll develop more opinions as I listen to more people. So like that's great. I see Sandeep. Please go ahead, Sandeep.
Yeah, so as a human being, everybody has a confirmation bias to up to an extent, but the fact remains that as cognitive beings, we do have to look at a bigger picture, right? I might like some, let's say, political party, but again, what the media houses have wide variety of spectrum of news to report, because it is not like one it is not just about one topic, right? Politics, technology, history, there are like multiple things that they report on, right? But the problematic scenario comes in, there are two types of misreporting happens. The first thing is maybe like three types. The first thing is you're just portraying your opinion, okay? You just think that this is how it has to be and this is how you want to project it towards something that happens to be like, okay, you're stored so ingrained to your personal confirmation bias, you just put it out there. That is the first thing. Second thing is you're intentionally have a agenda, right? You have them certain party, a certain person, a certain, there is a certain force that is affecting every single thing that you say as a media outlet. And the third thing is you you put out the news out there and you don't actually understand what you're trying to say, right? Let's say for technology, let's say if I have to take an example of sustainable energy, right? If they don't even understand how the technology works, if they take like a micro news, like, okay, the, let's say the BJP government has put up this much of budget for solar energy, but it hasn't taken up or something like that, but they don't really understand the totality of how big the sustainable energy is, how it affects our lives of the future of humanity, and they just don't really understand the news itself. So that is the third, that is the third type of reporting. So if are they even qualified enough to report some things that they don't even understand, and they put their own opinion out there, and people don't really understand some things and they look for the news channels so that they can get a context of actually what is going on. So if they don't even have the idea of what they are reporting, and if they are putting their own veil of opinions and misinformation out there, it is certainly it certainly affects in a large amount. Let's say if they affect 2000 households shying away from installing solar panels, so it does have an effect on the goodness, what do you say, the the productiveness of the society. So at the end of the day, it is business for them, but their business is affecting how the quality of society is in, for a large extent. So I do hold them responsible for it, but they have, as you know, it's a free world, they can do whatever they want. But cognitive, just have put your cognitive sense out there. Is it what we actually want to do as a humanity? I don't think so, but everybody have their opinion. But this is what I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. Raghav, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think pretty much all of us are on the same page that we're asking the media companies to draw a line. But there's another thing that I want to talk about, which is that this has become a business. I think that there is I recently came across a thing where like there is a company that is basically allowing anybody to purchase their services to create pseudo news articles. So what they do is like they have tie-ups with all of these companies, media companies and all that stuff. And you can pay them to, promote your content as actual news articles written by the media organization. And you can even like this, you can also like get slots in the interviews and all these things. I mean, you must have seen that a lot of these media debates, you'll have people come in as third party, like persons who are giving opinions on things and all that stuff. So you have people who are considered influencers or like experts or whatever coming and sharing things. And even these slots are like kind of, purchasable. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much of this is like purely business and it is available for the highest bidder. And so that's what these companies are doing. They're creating an audience following. It's kind of like a YouTube channel, right? What does a YouTube channel do? These people are allowed, they don't have the same regulations as actual news companies. With a news company, news organization, you have a certain amount of expectation as a public that, okay, if they are saying it, they must have done some research and they're doing this because otherwise they will get penalized for it, or some kind of like a regulation applies to them. But for YouTube channels that doesn't apply. So they can get sponsorship from anybody, and the only thing that can happen is that subscribers lose faith and they may unsubscribe from the channel or something. But what ends up happening is that these news channels are building a business and then creating like a sale out of like their reputation by allowing anybody who pays them to do this. And there was a few years ago, there was a sting operation by this magazine called the Cobra. I don't know if you guys remember this, but this was it was actually this organization is organized by Tarun Tejpal. He was also like in the media business for some time. He was an author, and they conducted a sting operation involving some 300 news outlets in India, like whether it's like newspapers or TV channels or whatever. And they found that only like 5 of these organizations said no when they approached with a large sum of money to basically create a paid propaganda. Okay, so this is like they went in like pretending to be this large organization with a lot of money, and they were basically making a deal saying that, okay, if I give you 100 crores, I want you to run this campaign for as part of your own thing, not revealing that this is sponsored or something, and promote it as news. And so this kind of corruption exists in the news media, and that's actually, it's difficult to detect when you're mixing it with passionate narrative. So it kind of complicates things. But then again, this is not a reason for saying that news media organizations should not be passionate or like should not have leanings, especially in political leanings or religious leanings or things like that. But I think that this is a separate issue. But I just wanted to add this as another thing that is to be considered, that the things that people say on these news channels are not really their own opinions. A lot of the times, a lot of the times, these are like paid airtime for people who are with the money to promote a certain viewpoint. So that kind of like takes the narrative control to the people with the money. That's not a very good thing. And I think ultimately the only thing that can basically prevent us from the pitfalls of these corruptions and lack of integrity is that public becomes really conscious, and like they start to make decisions on their own, and they understand. I think there is a high time that we have a reference. You can have all these news media organizations saying whatever they want to say, but there has to be a reference, a single source of truth that people still check with to see what is happening. I think there are some platforms, for example, Ground News is another platform that gives like a large perspective of like various news outlets. I think we need to have some kind of reference so that we sort of like know how to perceive these narratives. So, yeah.
Thank you, Raghav. Great points. Sandeep, please go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think there is any scrutiny for a media channel to do a research or on what they report. I may be wrong, but I think, Raghav, I don't think they have any regulation. Every citizen can claim to be a journalist. I think we have freedom of journalism for everybody, and I don't really think that you would probably don't need any license for a journalist. I may be wrong, but if anybody is know better, they can put it out there. And the second thing is, yes, ground news is a very good source for understanding the biases and how they report it. And another issue in the media houses is, let's say, they are all collaborated in certain background. There is a backstage. They all collaborate. Every news channel, every major news channel back there have a collaboration, right? So one news channel, let's say one reporter does some reporting, they all copy the same news to the rest of the news channels. They try to do that because to lower the cost, and it is easier, right? It is faster if you don't have to wait for your own representative to go out there and find the news, and the representatives themselves are connected with each other, and they have a collaboration in the back end, right? So how they spin that news is up to them. And so yes, so if let's say if there is one reporter which is a source of the false narrative, it gets published. It's all over the world. You can, as Raghav pointed out, you can go to Ground News and check how the same article being printed by multiple media outlets even without changing the grammar of it. So it is like sharing the customer base between themselves, and fighting with the last piece of business out of it. So it has become a dog fight between them. And also yeah, and there is a lot of psychological studies that goes behind this kind of how to get people hooked up to a certain type of news. I'm sure everyone of you aware of how the TikTok and Instagram works, how the algorithm, they have this psychological researchers put up the algorithms, how to get more clicks and more views and everything else. And one after Elon Musk took over X, he has added a feature called community notes. So if someone posts something, it is like a peer review, like people can comment on it and multiple people can authenticate it. So it is giving power back to the people in a certain way. So these are kind of the initiatives that give me hope that there is the light at the end of the tunnel. Because as Raghu pointed out earlier, again, with the great power comes great responsibility. And how you use it, for me, if you ask me, it is very, it has to be a responsible human being, and you should be responsible for what you're doing. When we can talk about freedom all we want, but and at the end of the day, as a human being, I think we have the wisdom to choose what to do with the power that we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. I'll now let Sharad Kumar go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I see the media houses has multiple income sources. The one being the advertisement, which we see so much often in every Times of India newspaper nationwide. But that's one of the media newspaper that is so successful throughout India because it's running with ads, running with so much ads. And but the other thing which is very difficult to differentiate is the paid media, the paid contents within the newspaper, as Raghav pointed out. Like in the newspaper medias today, any star diva can or any business, there is a potential that they can get their content sold or paid to air their uh, subjects in the newspaper. But one more point, what while watching newspaper TV news, used to love was also the news programs having doing some research analysis around it. Like if the news is research based opinion, or if they're giving opinion with an open question where the audience can think about it, I think that that is a good one to have, a kind of if they're not crossing the border. But the biased opinion and the polarized opinion is the one which is difficult to differentiate, and people can fall prey for it.
Thank you so much, Sharad Kumar. Raghav, please go ahead.
Yeah, regarding what Sandeep was talking about, like in terms of regulation of news media, right? So I think what I was trying to say is basically that YouTube does not, I mean, on YouTube, you can say whatever the hell you want. YouTube is a private organization and it has its own guidelines, its own, rules and regulations and all that stuff. But it is not, it is not a public entity, and the expectations are not the same. Public's expectations of the authenticity of information on YouTube is not the same as what you would have for news media channels on TV. Right? In India, there is an organization called the Press Council of India, which is a statutory body. So it's a legally appointed body which has its own powers. I mean, it doesn't have any kind of authoritative power saying that they will cancel the license of an organization or something like that. But they do issue guidelines which ought to be followed. And if it also has the power to receive complaints from the public regarding the journalistic ethics of an organization. And when it does that, like they can go investigate it, and certain things can be done. So there is a difference in terms of like how much regulation happens to press the official, what you can recognize as like journalistic media versus entertainment channels on YouTube or something like that. And the thing is that the issue with regulation of media is that there is a competing point of interest, which is like you want to live in a country where there is journalistic freedom of expression. So that is why regulation of media is again a sticky point in a democracy, because now if you start regulating things, and if you say that this news media like is failing to uphold journalistic ethics, then you can shut it down, but that can be applied arbitrarily. So that's why regulation of media is like at a minimum. There is no like hard control over these things. But yes, regulation does exist for what are considered to be journalistic bodies, and these would be like any news channels or things like that. So I just wanted to add that as a point. But yeah, that's about it from me.
All right, thank you so much, Raghav. Is there anybody else who would like to speak next? All right, I see Saju. Please go.
Um, so I think many speakers here have raised valid points about the situation of the media. There was a there was a not court case, a judicial inquiry that happened for Facebook in the United States Congress, in which Facebook was asked questions on whether they knowingly circulated um, sensitive misinformation to generate revenue. And they actually accepted that they knowingly circulated misinformation because sensational news garnered more views, and thus they were able to promote more advertisement and earn revenue. So I think um, any organization, if you leave it to them, and if you leave it to them to guide themselves by profitability, then the question of morality and all those things goes out the window. So I believe I like the concept of societies and communities that drive things that has worked for India. And I believe Press Council of India could be a great initiative to um preserve the truthfulness of news, right? And actually, we don't have any, like, even if a certain person colors certain news in his own opinions, if truthfulness is preserved, there'll be enough amount of counter opinions to guide it back into the right path. That's what I feel the way forward would be.
Thank you, Saju. Anybody else would like to go ahead?
I do have
If
one more
yes,
thing to
please
point,
go.
like, because like, see, Saju, you made a comparison regarding Facebook. See, Facebook is not like a NDTV or something like that. Facebook is a platform on its own. They actually allow independent sources to come on the platform and broadcast information. It's like the equivalent of like cable TV or something, you know. But obviously it's on the internet and it's a different mode of broadcasting and all that stuff. I think that as an organization who's doing something like that, I think they do have like extra responsibilities than, let's say, the owner of a YouTube channel or a TV channel, because there is a blurry line of, it's really hard to like distinguish who has more responsibility or less. But for example, like if you say that a traditional news TV channel has more responsibility than Facebook, then I would kind of disagree with that, because like Facebook is meant to be like a platform, and if they shut you down as a source of information, then that becomes, you know that is like a lot of power for them to have. They can like, if they can arbitrarily shut down people that they don't agree with, that is very, very dangerous. And that this happens actually a lot. I think that most of you must have heard about these kind of like things happening in the US, where big tech companies are like wielding a lot of power in like shutting down the people that they disagree with. Even, for example, when the COVID thing happened, there were a lot of people who are like protesting the whole measures of preventing COVID, right? And what happened is that some people were questioning the efficacy of these methods, like the wearing the mask and the vaccine mandate and all these things. And they were all like, blocked from YouTube, from Twitter, and all these things. I think Twitter was still, not under Elon's control up until then. I actually think this incident was the reason why Elon Musk actually went ahead and purchased, at least according to his rationale, that there was a visible death of integrity in big tech corporations, and they were always like, accused of being leaning towards one side or the other. And there was a large sentiment that there was an absence of freedom of expression on tech platforms. So I think tech platforms have extra responsibilities of ensuring, unbiased in unbiasedness, because like they are not there to broadcast information. They are there to facilitate the broadcasters of information across the board. So if they have a bias and they're exercising it, that is pretty dangerous. I think that is more irresponsible than somebody who is just like broadcasting their own bias. So I think that they should be under different levels of control. I think what happened in the US, with them being questioned on these things, it is very, very appropriate. I don't think that same level of questioning would be reasonable for, let's say, the owners of NDTV or something like that, because these people have like extra lot more power in like shutting down voices. So yeah.
Saju, do you have anything to say?
Yes, I do. I think someone else wants to respond. There are a few hands risen. But yeah, I think Raghav has made a fair point. Yeah, I will speak later.
Okay, thank you, Saju. Sandeep, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't think there should be a regulation that would suspend any media house out there, because as much as biased or confirmation by the opinions they might put out there, they have the freedom to do it. And when you talk about X, when I would like to bring up the case in Brazil. So every like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all of them are allowed or accessible in Brazil right now, except for X, because they have directly rejected the directly not did not obey the court orders to have you to what do you call it, censor certain news. But Facebook, YouTube has agreed to Brazil's request or the court orders to send block some information on their platforms, but X did not comply with the court orders. So X is being suspended in Brazil right now, and they're also attacking Elon Musk's company like SpaceX and Tesla as well in Brazil. So we should not criminalize or penalize any media house for whatever they are doing, good or bad, but they have the freedom to do it. I think the best way to counter it is by providing a choice to the consumer and people. Let's say if I have to draw a comparison between X and other platforms, someone is standing up to the governments. Of course they did comply to other governments regulations of taking out some posts or suspend, because there is certain line that X draws when it comes to, because taking out censoring certain category of information when the government itself is corrupted is not ethical to do. But if by and large a government says, okay, this person is harmful and we ask you to suspend this person's account, there is some legal action going on against this person, so you could comply with it. You don't have to, but again, that is a choice that you can make or not as a media company. So when there is a choice and people realize more and more, okay, there is a choice that we can have a platform or a source of information or news, and we can have our own voice. So when you watch a TV on a news channel, you don't have a voice, right? It's a one-way road. But when there is like a platform like X, you have I mean, maybe your voice may be insignificant and no one hears it, but at least you have an option to put it out there, and you're contributing to the authenticity of the information on the platform. So more and more these kind of platforms exist and come up, we have more choice to do it. And I don't think we'll ever be able to get rid of how you say, more towards business oriented media that is doesn't care about the social well-being. They only care about making money. I don't think we'll ever get rid of such a system. But I also believe in, again, freedom of whatever they are trying to do without harming others intentionally or unintentionally. It's their freedom of expression, right? So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. If anybody wants to go and speak next, please raise your hands using the reaction button.
Yeah, I want to speak just to add some more perspective.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, whole and soul. I mean, here we see that all of us wants unbiased news or unsold news, but uh, they are there for profit. They are in business, and for a business to continue, for them to employ people, they need to have the business, and they need to make profit. I was talking to the local newspaper agent in my area, and he used to say that, look, the subscription of newspaper is less than 30% of what it was pre-COVID, right? And we all say that we need unbiased news, but are we ready to pay for it? Uh, the some newspaper who run sheets of advertisements are still cheaper compared to the Financial Express or various other newspapers, but it cost marginally higher. And when we pay the monthly bill, are we ready to pay for it? Right. Even in the as the Ola founder, or sorry, the Uber founder had mentioned that in India everyone wants everything for free. I mean, no one wants to pay for any subscription. Right. Today we are able to browse news in the in through various apps, and we are happy to read it free. Uh, uh, so are we ready to? And even the news channels, the various news channels. I mean, majority of it, why does the certain news media has the highest viewership? Because they are ad free. And free, how can they do it? I mean, economically it's just not possible. The public want it for free, but the media houses has to bear various expenses. Where does it come? So I mean, this is a circular thing where, it's we can continue to blame the media houses, but somewhere its responsibility also lies with the people. I mean, we have to choose what we want. Yeah, I would like
That's
to end my.
yeah, that's some really great perspective from your side, Sharad. I mean, yeah, that is something we definitely need to think about, that if we want unbiased and objective news, are we really willing to pay for it? Because on one side, this is if that is our requirement, then such media houses who are producing such quality content also need profits to sustain themselves. So yeah, like I personally found your point like really great and very practical. So thank you so much. Anybody who wants to speak next, please raise your hands using the reaction button. I see Sandeep. Please go ahead.
Yeah, when what they say in the tech industry, if it is free, you're the product. So, and there is a sad side for it, because we think it is free, actually it is not. We are paying for the cable news, and there is a morality, not morality, let's say that there is a logical thing that we have to think about. Let's say we have a Tata Sky at home and we are paying for it, right? We are paying for the services they are providing, but yet they are also publishing their ads. It has come down to a point like I'm paying for watching the ads, right? It may be minuscule, maybe like 30 or 20 paisa per month. I'm paying for each channel, but still I'm paying for it, and they are still showing the ads. So technically they are not free, but they operate in a different level, and they have so much power. They could squeeze out. Uh, they could squeeze the cost of the service to a point where it feels free. And the second point is the advertisements that we see on the big media. Most of them are they're just trying to, like, let's say there is a watch or there is a car, there is a most of the ads are not usually, they don't make a lot of money from the ads. They do make a lot money from that, but if the advertisements are the only thing that they have to survive on a published media, probably they won't be able to do that. And the second thing is, the most of the information that they put it out there on a newspaper is mostly, like, let's say when it comes to news of the sports, right? They have people who can report it accurately. Technology, most of the time, yes, accurate, but there are only certain topics they are so biased about, right? Politics, probably, yeah, that is the only the major aspect of it. And maybe the movie stars, it is like sensational celebrities and all. It's a normal thing. The celebrities are always, grabbing for attention, and people want to know what they are doing it, and these are the channel partners. So we have to ask ourselves, is everything that they are saying is biased, or even though if they are biased, is it actually going to affect the society at large? When it comes to politics, yes, it is, because even Facebook, it is under scrutiny, and they did confess to it. It is about politics, right? They swayed the public opinion towards politics. They were not, I don't think they have any other court hearings apart from this very apart from politics, right? I don't think they are being scrutinized for anything else, because you will not be scrutinized for targeting ads, because everybody knows. Even European Union had fair policy that they put up like 2 to 3 years ago, but even though, the only difference is they are upfront about it. They, if you go to if you tunnel through like VPN from a European country, you will see that when you open a website, you have to accept some of the terms and conditions which was buried before down there. So this is a little bit of transparency adds to you, and they'll show it to you. Okay, it is not like every time I go in there, without my knowledge, they are taking my data out of it. So it is giving a little bit of clarity to the consumer what they are getting into. So that's the difference between Europe and America right there. So Europe has done a little bit of thing, but they're not criminalizing or penalizing anybody for advertising, right or wrong. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Raghav, you can go ahead.
Yeah, with regards to this thing about like, if you are not paying, you're the product. I think that is a reality that very few people will realize. And I think that, I mean, this is a controversial opinion, but I think that if you are not informed enough, then you kind of deserve to suffer the consequences for it. And the problem is that it is not only the people who are ignorant of it, it is also all of us who suffer when a large majority of people are ignorant in a society like, there is a democracy. Because uninformed people make, decisions as a consequence of that. So it's not just the people who are ignorant who are suffering, but also everybody else, depending on the scale of how many people are victims of this ignorance. That that if you're consuming something for free, then there is something that is being injected into your content that is trying to use up your resources. Anytime you use Instagram and you see an ad, it is basically like, grabbing your attention. You can, I mean, if you have the power to discern how that thing that you're paying attention to affects you, then that's great for you. But the truth is that a lot of people don't realize how these things operate, and they end up being unwitting victims of points of influence that they don't even recognize consciously. So again, it is a sticky point, because like I said, it's a controversial statement to say that if you are ignorant, then it is justified that you're a victim. But then if a large number of people are also victims of this, then you also like, get sucked into their suffering, let's say. Right. And again, it complicates things because we're a democracy, but then again, because we're also like an open marketplace, we can one of the things that one of the powers that we have as individuals is that we can take a large scale problem. If something like a large number of people being ignorant of the way these things work, and they're suffering for it, then now you have a large enough problem that presents an avenue for you to build something that can solve that problem and therefore make you rich. So I think in in the end, it is like a fair system after all, because this is how society is built. I think all the things that we are saying here, we're talking about the problems that exist, but we have to understand that at the bottom line is that we are in a society, and societies are all like human constructions. So there are meant to be flaws. At any point, you will have like faults that need to be fixed, and that's where we are. I do see that this is a thing that we can leverage for ourselves if you manage to solve that problem. And that's one of the reasons why I actually am excited about the debate club, because here, the fact that we are talking about this, even though it's like just 10 people in this call, we're actually, I mean, less than 10 people, but we are actually talking about these things, and we're educating ourselves. When I hear other people speak about it, it also gives me the sense of like what other people think about things. And this bi-directional way of broadcast, that is what is the solution, I think. Because like I think Sandeep was the one who pointed out that these are one-way broadcast systems, right? Like when you watch either even YouTube, where you're able to comment and react and subscribe and like videos and things like that, it is predominantly a one-way broadcast. people who have the control over these channels are able to influence your point of view, but they can simply choose to delete your comment if they wanted to. Like YouTube allows you to have comment moderation where you can like prevent certain things from showing up, and you can also when you have a large enough gathering, you will have other people like supporting you and opposing the people who oppose you and all this stuff. But and also TV channels are predominantly one way, newspapers are one way. These platforms are, they have an undue power over you, because like you'll be sitting in your living room watching this news and your blood is boiling, but you can't do anything about it. That's where like social media platforms come in, where you do have the power to exchange, but then the problem with that is that there is so much junk. Anybody can say anything, so everybody says whatever they want, and it's like it's a lot of junk to go through, and the quality of discourse is very low, which is why I think a platform like the debate club, where we are having like substantive conversations, we are basically strangers coming together to have a substantive exchange of perspectives. And I think something like this, if it is done on a large scale, in a sustainable manner, I think that would be something that would really result in a societal evolution, and we can all educate each other so that like we can all start acting effectively in self-interest, and that would make for a better society, because society is composed of individuals, and if you have individuals prospering, then society is prospering.
Thank you so much, Raghav. I pretty much agree with whatever you've said in these last 5 minutes or so. Great points, really. But then there's that point of like, I mean, of course, what you said was controversial, that if you're ignorant, you deserve to suffer. But then most people aren't ignorant on purpose. I mean, maybe it counts when people are ignorant on purpose, but we never know. So I guess that's where I stand on that. And anybody who wants to speak next can raise their hands.
I mean, okay, I just want to comment on this ignorant on purpose. First of all, ignorance is the default state. What I'm saying is that if you don't put in the effort to like get out of that ignorance, then you pay the price for it. And this is not me saying that this should be the case or something. I think it's fair that that is how it is, because it's the same for everybody. We all pay the price for our ignorance, and I think the problem really happens when you don't even know that you're ignorant. That is when things really, because you don't even know that it's your responsibility to get out of the situation, and that's where the real problem is, and that is more of a fundamental life, philosophical life problem. It's an existential problem, not specific to this situation. um, but it's not like me making the rules. I just like happen to see it just the way that all of us can see it.
Yep, that makes more sense. Thank you. So it's like around 12:15, and if anybody wants to start speaking, you guys will have to make your argument and then sum up with a concluding statement. And if we have any other points left, we will be taking it into the unmoderated session. Saju, please go ahead.
So the topic of today, right?
I'm sorry to interrupt, Saju, but you're not very audible. I'm not sure if it's just me or for the other participants as well.
Yeah, we can't hear what he's saying. I think it sounds really far away.
How about now? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the problem was at my end. So I just want to clarify the topic of the day: influence of um, the communicator or the platform on the information that is sent out via media, right? So there is no there are ways to handle it, and my only concern from my point of view is about spread of misinformation. Is that the general concern with everyone, or is it something else?
I think, I mean, okay, just to summarize, right? The topic is basically media should not be um, sharing opinions with information. It's I think I'm paraphrasing roughly, but yeah. So the idea is that as a media organization, you have the responsibility of being unbiased, versus like somebody who says that like media also has the ability as a right to broadcast their opinion. So that is the broad description of the topic.
No, I got that. So my concern, I mean, the reason I am in favor of that is because I don't know any other way to prevent misinformation. That is uh, my intention of supporting that. I'm in support of that personal opinions should not be influencing the way the information is disseminated. But is that the same concern shared with everyone, or they have different concerns?
I mean, we all heard everybody's point of view. It's I think, see, it's not just the opinions. It's also some, I don't know how else to summarize it, but like it's not just opinions that cause misinformation. It's also like other things. But opinions do have a sway. It's not all misinformation alone, because like somebody sharing their opinion could have somebody of power, where they have visibility, but them sharing their opinion has a large scale impact on the public perception. So even if you're only speaking facts and you're not sharing any misinformation, the way you share it, there is a subtle power that you have to influence the minds of the people who are observing you. So it is really hard to I guess like differentiate this from like just sharing opinions, or yeah, it's a subtle power that people have to influence the perspectives of the audience, and you sharing your opinion actually like does influence their point of view, even if it's not misinformation.
Any comments from your side, Saju?
Yeah, it will go back and forth a lot. So I'm just checking if anyone else has a different opinion.
Uh, I think everybody's pretty much on the same page. So, if anybody wants to have like a concluding statement or a concluding remark, now's your time.
So this is Saju, I will put forward my concluding remark. The subtle tones, as Raghav and others pointed out, the subtle tones and change in pitch of speech or an information can convey a different thought, right from the times of Mahabharata. Though it is said that a certain elephant was quoted as being killed, and the other side perceived it um, as a very important personnel of the army was killed. By this is one, you cannot say, you can say that was truthfully spoken, but conveyed in a manner to spread misinformation. Now that can be done. Obviously, it doesn't happen without intention. A person who is conveying information wants that information to be conveyed in a certain, perceived in a certain specific different way that is wrongful. It has to be done intentionally. So that is what is happening in today's world also. The There is intention in media houses and platforms and channels like YouTube, Facebook, whatever it may be, wherein they are incentivized to convey misinformation that favors a particular dispensation. And This is because this has to be solved. I don't know what is the solution. There are many solutions. PCI is one of the solution. But this is something that is driven by entry of capitalism into news media. But I don't know, because previously news media was considered very boring, and now it is interesting because it has become part of the power struggle in India. At least I know that media is very much become part of the power struggle. And those who are aware, those who are awakened, know that it's very easy to convey misinformation using regular daily news and information if conveyed in a specific manner. But I really don't know how to solve it. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Mahadev?
Oh, yeah. Hello, everyone. Actually, this is my first debate. So just I'm sharing my personal observations. Uh, so media, initially after freedom, media is, means before also, and let's taking things after freedom, media is considered as fourth pillar of democracy. So initially it was given the opportunity to share the information between the people and the government. So it acted as a communication between the both wings. So the government, the total that all the freedom fighters, all those years, established Press Information Bureau. So this Press Information Bureau used to control all the used to regulate and govern the news before it getting published. So this happened, means as per my knowledge, this happened till Lal Bahadur Shastri. After that, since many other factors are getting involved, and private media, privatization of this information happened, and this content has been delivered to the people, which got into the hand of few capitalist nations. And when world became aware of the power of this content, which is shared to the people, the power of advertisement, then all this problem has become. Suppose, let me explain an example. Before we release a movie, censor board is giving, you all know this actually, just I want to reiterate it. uh, Censor board is giving the review that this thing is should be watched. Like that, before I read newspaper, how do I know the authenticity of news which I'm being read? Is this being governed by some government body which should given permission to publish this news, should be read by the people? But it doesn't happen nowadays because everything is vast thing, and government has so many, doesn't have such a facility. Okay, let me tell. I teach at government colleges. Now lately I'm teaching. So they they in private colleges everything is digitized, and students get the opportunity to there is a proper communication between students and the authorities of the college. Let's take principal. So in government college, I am a third party. The students doesn't have proper communication. Still, they are following only WhatsApp group. There is no bulk mail processing, and so what I propose is, maybe anyone can portray the information, but spread of misinformation can only be regulated by this thing, expanding the resources of government, streamlining the processes of law and order. It doesn't happen in one day, but we can look forward to it by we will take one step at a time. So every government college, every government institution, every government hospital, they have to be regulated, and they have to be revamped like corporate processes. There should be a proper communication between everything. There should be a proper transparency. Then only I think this change can happen, because uh, when you reiterate something, when the people see the same thing, it even comes in their dreams. So if you're injecting some misinformation, if you're injecting something more about ads, if you're injecting something more about Adani in a newspaper, definitely they are going to focus more on his business than what the government is providing, what service of government is providing to him. So suppose there are many magazines that are generated by government, like Employment News, Kurukshetra, Yojana. These are only available in library. There so many people, they are not aware that, like India Today, they are not publicized like India Today. So wherever this Modi picture is being ported over, there should be what are these magazines and what is the media communication. It should also be included with those marketing material. And finally, what I want to say is there is a means I want to suggest is everyone can portray their opinion, but we need to reconstruct our third pillar of democracy, that is judiciary. The judiciary has to direct the way of news. Suppose, example, let me say there is one Malayalam movie called Naradan. In that Naradan, Tovino Thomas, he opens a media agency and he used to publicize. He used to grab attention of every public, and after at the last, he used to take public for granted, and he used to share all those personal. Unbreaching the privacy, breach of unintended breach of privacy, in the pretext of unintended breach of privacy, he used to delve into the deep secrets, and he's not adding value to society, but he's dictating it. So when the judiciary is not aware of the fourth pillar, all this crisis happens. So what we need to do is we need to streamline the processes of law and order, and we need to publicize the government services like the businesses do. We need more money for that. That's why government is struggling. I don't know when it will happen, but only thing we can do is we just every effort of ours count. That's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your input. Mahadev will now be moving into the unmoderated session. So all the points that you have will now be discussed. This will be more of a discussion than a debate. So the general rules are participants don't need to raise their hands anymore. You can speak one after another and make sure not to interrupt any other speaker while they are speaking. So we will now be moving into the unmoderated session. And yes, please be respectful. Remember to be respectful. That's all.
Okay. So a couple of things about what Mahadev was talking about. I think, the couple of people raised this point about like corporates taking over the media space. And I think that that's a good thing, actually. I think that imagine if like there was only one or like a few players in the scene and there was not a real incentive in the space, then I don't think that anybody would be putting effort to raise the standards of journalism or go to the lengths that they would go to present information. I think the fact that there are these competing forces of information broadcast, there is an incentive to raise the stakes and do a better job. And also the other thing is that I don't think it'll work if there was no profit in this game. Profit is something that is a huge incentive for a lot of people to perform things. I think what needs to happen is like better regulation, where misinformation is tackled with great impact. I think that is the solution that comes to my mind, is that the government has to step up in terms of regulation. It has to, again, there is again this problem of how do you regulate a media without them playing the victim card of authoritative governments. That is a challenge to be solved. And I think if you make the rules and regulations very transparent and very public, and everything has a code, and if something that you say is proven to be false, then there is a precedent for punitive actions against the journalistic body. I think all media organizations should be registered as a journalistic body, and they must follow certain rules and regulations. And if they fail to follow that, they need to be penalized for it. And penalizing them is not about shutting them down. It's more about like giving them the incentive to not be penalized without impacting their freedom of expression, where they're able to say things and present information. But if it is provable that what they've said is false, then we can, certain punitive actions can be taken on them. And that could be financial, like, they would have to pay a certain amount of fine. Again, for a organization operating on profit, that is probably one of the biggest incentives to avoid things like that. And but then again, subtle forms of bias should also be factored in. It's not just pure misinformation where it's easily provable that you said something but then the actual truth was something else. But even things like ignoring emphasis on pertinent facts, like for there must be different levels of violations. For example, presenting misinformation is one violation. The other thing could be omission of pertinent facts, misrepresentation of context. Things like this could have like different definitions, and all of these could be factored into, like, what constitutes ethical journalism. And if you do that, if there is proper regulation, then I think that we could create the incentive structure for integrity in the journalistic space. I think that right now the infrastructure is really poor, and that's why we see so many cases of like people blatantly um not being the best in how, the quality of information that they present. So that's my one possible idea of like how we can solve this.
Raghav, there is again, this is a layer of trust, right? So the first thing is, of course, the misinformation could have degrading, socially degrading effects. But again, it's again how we judge how much it is degrading the society. And I think one of the biggest problems has boiled down to a point where we don't know what to believe anymore. But again, sometimes, like, see, when let's say you follow a media house, and at certain point you understand that they are faking it and they are giving you misinformation, and then you realize at certain point that, okay, you have to scrutinize your own source. So I think the solution probably is not regulation, I should say, because governments have historically tend to misuse any power they have towards anybody or anything, because media is such a big influence on something. The regulation could have loopholes, or it has leakages that they could use do, because again it is subjective, right? You can say it is misinformation and the media house could claim that it is not. Of course we can prove it, but again in the house of court the ruling party could take it too far. And also there could be two types of misinformation. First thing is deliberately injecting misinformation, and second thing is they don't even know that if it is misinformation, they are being misguided themselves. They think that it is truth. And I think, in my opinion, the solution for this has to roll down from an individual. You have to, if you see a problem and if you do not act upon it, if you start rolling the ball in your capacity, and you have to keep that persistence to find a solution and find alternatives for that. And these are the push, like finding a business model for getting unbiased, or like, let's say, information as it is. So as you have mentioned, the ground is one of those kind of initiatives to put a business model out there. Also gives you a certain platform to go visit what is going on out there. So I think it is like a wave that shifts from one side to another, and I think the societies have to dictate towards it. And also, as I have mentioned earlier, is ignorance of some people, a large number of people, is affecting the rest of the, what maybe those who are actually not who are not. So that also plays a major role. but again, they don't have a choice. They don't even know there is a choice. But if you make a movement or a change big enough, there will be some attraction to it. There will be some not recognition to it. I think I'm trying to bring it up again, like X with Elon Musk. There could it's debatable. Is it a good move or not? But again, he's trying to do something that has not been done for a very long time in such a large scale. So we can have a debate on is it right or wrong in many ways, but at least he's trying to do something about it. So I think it has to come when it comes to and competition, right? If someone is doing evil in the name of competition, we can give it the same competition in the name of doing the right thing. So I think the competition has to come from the same area of expertise. If some other entity gets into this regulation, because there is no end to it, because there is information every nanosecond, billions of information generating nanosecond, and it is authenticating it is literally impossible. So that is where the community notes on the X do get has a lot of, I think it's very valuable feature addition that Elon made to X, which may not seem very big at a first glance, but it is a very big thing because people around the world are trying to authenticate the information. And that again, we have to draw a line at some point, like, okay, we trust this platform at certain point, right? But again, even if they misuse that platform, there will be a certain point that we realize, okay, they are also misusing it, and then the cycle goes on again. I think that's how it works.
See, Sandeep, I agree with you. I think it was Sandeep speaking about regulation. The problem is who will do it? And so far, just to do a thought experiment, no? If there is a news on Twitter that inversely affects the SpaceX business or Tesla cars business, do you think Elon Musk will allow that to be published on Twitter? I don't think so. I would not do it if I were Elon Musk.
He would do it, he wouldn't do it. I cannot vouch for anybody. What I'm trying to say is, at certain point, at the down the line, it will prove at certain point, okay, we will realize, okay, Elon Musk is biased towards his own companies and we cannot trust him. When it comes to SpaceX and Tesla, whatever the news comes from the X may not be authentic. What I'm trying to say is, there is a point that we have to trust somebody, right? Okay, we trust India today for certain extent, and then there is at certain point you realize, okay, most of the news that comes out of this outlet is false. But okay, let's say whatever Elon Musk says about Tesla and SpaceX, you have to take it with a grain of salt. That is how it boils down to it. That is how it will boil down to it. But at least the rest of the things that he is not affected by it. What I'm trying to say is, if someone doesn't have an alternative motive, that they need to survive on this own, like they have to do it, otherwise they cannot survive. If it comes down to a point where they have to keep doing it for what they are doing it, so that their existence is counted upon it, they will keep doing it. And you cannot and this is a single channel information, right? You cannot go and hold India today accountable for what they did. And even I don't think regulation can be any much useful. It will only give power to somebody else to control the information. So this is a little attempt. What I'm trying to say is, it an attempt that gives a little power to common man. So you can say whatever Elon Musk says about his companies could be false, but what about the rest of the news that comes on X?
So here is the theory. Elon Musk has recently done things in Twitter to monetize Twitter in a way which shows that his intentions are very shady. He had all this communities on Twitter which allows propaganda to be stopped, but he was himself found to be part of that propaganda, right? So
Yeah, it
these,
could be. Yeah.
yeah. So I really don't know. It's a good point actually. Regulation, I
I mean,
agree, it is useless. Yeah.
I mean, the solution has to come from the consumer. I think so. But again, how much power we have, we know that we don't have a lot of power to do it as an individual. And the regulation, I don't think it is going to serve any major purpose unless, as I said before, it gives power to government to misuse the power towards media. So yeah.
So are we really looking for a solution, something like a honest, quote unquote, honest regulator?
See, again, it comes down to morality, right? It's, do they want to do it? If someone wants to find something, they will find it even if it doesn't exist. Okay, so if they want to do whatever they are doing, and if a regulation, if let's say if you put out a regulation, I don't think it is very hard for them to bypass it or go around it, find a loophole or find a leak, and they could say, okay, it's not our responsibility. They can set up another company and say, okay, these are the source of our news. See, there is always, regulation is always comes with its own pitfalls, right? So how far we are willing to go towards it, and how far how strong we are no, determined. Okay, even if doesn't matter whatever you say, the statistics of our last 5 years, what you have been doing is like, let's say 70-80% of the information you put out there is just for business purpose, or like to make money. You don't care about the social well-being, then you're out. Is it how far we are going to take it? If we can do that, we can do that. In one case it could be good, but I can assure you that the same justification will be used to take down an innocent media house. What I'm trying to say is, if a regulation is going to harm innocent media houses in the name of regulating the big media, it is going to hinder the freedom of the honesty that exists already. Because the regulators may not hold big media accountable. They might go on, they could use the same laws to find other media houses which are not very powerful. They are like very small media houses which are trying to project something about a local MP or MLA. They could use the same rule on a local level, and then they can suppress the media. That's what I'm trying to say. Because if you, the time you give power to somebody else in the politics, they will always use it to suppress the little guy.
I
Uh,
mean, even if there was this quote unquote honest regulator found, we can never really assure that this honesty will prevail for a long time. So while regulation, in my personal opinion, may be a solution, it is like a very short-term solution. And even if we ideally find this or build this honest regulating body, I think we'll have to like keep updating it, and like it needs to like just keep updating itself so that there are no leaks and loopholes, which is again quite next to impossible, I believe.
So here is the so there is a way in which there is a one of the institutions in India functions not based on honesty but based on logic and justifications, right? So the Indian court system or judicial system, with all its faults, its delays and whatnot, functions based um, on the intention that justice has to be delivered and has to also appear to be delivered. What that basically means is, suppose if there is a fake news somewhere and some misinformation that is being spread, then that honest regulator only has to show why it is fake, right? And what is the logical reasoning behind why he is saying that it is fake. If such an honest regulator can be, I mean, if we can find such a system just like the Indian court or judicial system, then we can say that it is based on justifications and logic, which means it appears to be true. And here is how it appears to be true, no? If we can do something like that, it might be a solution.
That sounds plausible, but at the same time, I think Indian judiciary is obviously we have seen justice, but we have seen delayed justice. I don't think that will work very well in case there is misinformation being spread, because by the time justice is served, people are already impacted and influenced. But then again, we also live in a democracy. So, like, justifying something or logically reasoning something is mostly based on what the majority of the general public believes and thinks, and whatever appears to be true to the majority of the public, right? So, like, again, I think that is one of the minus points if we were to consider this thing. But definitely another pretty logical and practical solution to this problem.
Yeah, agreed with
Actually,
you.
in my opinion, despite the speculation, everyone trusts the justice judgment given by the court. So maybe every citizen can extend their support to add value to the regulation, which is being honest given by the court. So I suppose yes, it doesn't work practically, but what I meant to say is, if suppose in emergency time, no media published against Congress. They I means I don't know. I was not born at time, but as per my knowledge, Indian Express it shown what are the facts are. So at that time, when four pillars of democracy does their duty, definitely the regulation happens and it appears to give the justice. So everything to not go into the hand of this first pillar or second pillar. Third pillar must do its duty. It should fulfill its existence, and every citizen must believe in it and add value to the decorum of the governance. So basically, let's make an attempt. Suppose if High Court is Supreme Court is giving justice that okay, I don't know whether it gives or not. Okay, let's ban some media channel. Definitely, it makes high. Yes, Supreme Court has the authority. It has given many notification to Elon Musk. So it has the it is a governing body. So if one judgment is made against some newspaper channel, suppose it is given that Deccan Chronicle is spreading misinformation and going to arrest something, it doesn't happen in the meantime, but when it happens, it definitely shakes the whole industry, and definitely everyone pick, buckles up and tries to regulate their information before publishing. I think this is my opinion, my solution.
Yeah, I pretty much agree on that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
There again, the type of misinformation, is it going to affect a day-to-day life of certain community or a group, or that is a misinformation is only for the purpose of a clickbait to get you for the revenue purpose. So that again, that can be categorized, or they can come up with new words like it is not misinformation, this is advertising, right? But when it comes to disrupting social life of of some communities, of course, even if there is no regulation out there, there will be consequence for any media outlet that they will not cross inherently, right? So there is, I don't think any media outlet would go out and say, okay, there is an asteroid coming towards Earth and it will kill everybody, right? Even people wouldn't believe it. So what I'm trying to say is, these media houses know what is the border, what is the where is the line, and they don't have to cross it. And when even if the regulation comes, it will sit right on that line, because again, it's it might go a little bit, it might sway a little bit here and there, but again, they can always go very close to that line and then keep it that way, right? And even they can affect the regulation themselves in a long term. So if they have a power already, like they have a lot of power that can affect, don't you think they also will affect the regulation?
Yeah, definitely. There are many personal spheres that will be affecting our professional life. So yeah, definitely they are working, but we can make an attempt. They can make an attempt. All these things we are discussing, these are assumptions. First, let's get some judgment against some misinformation, and we can, if everyone engage. Everyone follows his fundamental rights and fundamental duties, does this civic engagement, and get this responsible citizenship rather than this Aadhaar card and everything. If everyone is aware of what are the processes happening, definitely it happens, and that awareness must be spread by government itself through its magazines. So I just intended to publicize their own magazines. Wherever the Modi photo is there, wherever the government schemes are there, definitely there should be the Press Information Bureau and their report. That actually, I think this is my opinion.
I think they do have channels, right? They have multiple PMO channels that do have a lot of. I think they usually work as advertisement for the ruling party. Less of less of a news source. So even they themselves are advertising their for the future vote bank. So the government itself is going out there advertising there, because I'm not sure we can debate on should they advertise it or not, because people must know what they did. And
So how do we spread the word like other businesses do? The government schemes, yes, so they are present everywhere, the government, but we are ignoring it. Every citizen is ignoring it. But we are getting our interpretation is based on what is reiterated to our mind. So that is not reiterated more. This other advertisement, Amul milk, and all these things are reiterated more because there is more visibility of them. We have the visibility of this.
Even what is considered as news depends on how many people it is getting connected, right? You wouldn't report something that wouldn't connect with people. So even the definition of news itself is what people want to know about. So it's about, again, it's some people want to know it, some people doesn't want to know it. And personally, I don't engage in popular the big media at all. Maybe like for last 15 years I haven't tuned into any big media. So it's up to the person, right? They have been watching it for a very long time, and that is what their source of information is. If I have to give an example, the funniest thing is when in our local state, when the ballot was counting, this there are two channels that are reporting like exactly opposite numbers. So it is ridiculous, right? You can just go to the government website and see the results yourself, but how many people actually know that you can do that, right? People who bias towards one channel will get stick to it, and the other people will stick to other channel. But in the end they have to report the truth, at least when it comes to the ballots. But again, it shows that they go to the extents where there is again a line, because they have reported wrong information. You cannot hold them accountable. They could say, okay, we didn't get the information in time. So there is always a loophole for to escape the reality.
Okay, I agree. There are many loopholes, but how do we proceed then? How should the government run?
I don't personally think that government should have a regulation on the media, because it only gives power from media to the governments. I don't think it will have a lot of effect. We can try it, but again, I don't have a personally, I don't have faith in government using it good of people, because they are the ones who are actually, the political parties are behind the media already, and you're giving power to them again, more power to these two bodies. Maybe it's, you may say, okay, without any regulation they don't have any limits to consider themselves into. So maybe that is where the soft spot is. Like, we can have a regulation at least, but again it is in their hands. But we have a regulation, and we'll probably, there is a little bit of hope that could probably is how it is.
So I agree with this. See, I'll tell you a small story. During my childhood, there used to be a tabloid paper, a neighborhood tabloid paper, who will always keep publishing sensational news like XYZ person's wife ran away with some XYZ persons, cousin and things like that. Okay, and people would read it. It also carried advertisements of local businesses and all that. Over a period of time, what happened was people would think that whatever news they publish is junk, you know, but they would buy the paper for the advertisements and to know the businesses, local businesses, and things like that. Um, so that I agree with you, but it doesn't happen immediately. So, for example, another tabloid media can come up with a different name, and people would start trusting it actually. So that sometimes what happens, my concern is that sometimes the competition is not to show the truth, but the competition is to show the misinformation and sensationalism, because that is what is helping the dispensation in power, right? So that is where the problem is actually. Otherwise,
That is how, yeah, go on,
yeah,
please.
yeah. You go on, yeah.
So that is how societies work. Something, as I said earlier, if a fake news is not hurting anybody, like not hurting per se, if it is not disrupting your regular life, even judiciary wouldn't be very interested in penalizing somebody. And if that fake news does have a big enough effect, that judiciary, even if there is no regulation, judiciary will come into play, because again the effect of that fake news on something also brings up how we would react to it, right? So that is why, even if they are publishing sensational news, it is news, right? You cannot just say you shouldn't do it, because it is news. That is, even if it is not true, let's say if they publish something about somebody, only that, even that person cannot take any action. They can probably do a defamation case on them, but again, it's a personal to the media house. It cannot be like the public cannot do anything about it, because even if you have a regulation out there, it could be fake news. They are well within their freedom of publishing that what they do, unless we say that okay, the regulation says you cannot do that. When we say the regulation that you cannot do that, then there is a lot of other things that also come into place, that same regulation will be used to say, to come to force the hand of media not to do things what it could be the freedom that they have, that they can do it. So what I'm trying to say is, when things do go wrong in a way, then they have an effect on them. Judicially are penalizing it, or even from the consumer, and they consider the media house as corrupt, or fake information. Like we have an impression, that we change that impression, and we probably move on, right? And it's a cycle, and most of the people may not even realize that they are consuming fake news, but the cycle will move on. Like people will get older, and they should not stop watching news, and then they have to adopt to the newer generations. So it's a generational, communal, and social thing that it's a bond that keeps everything together. A regulation comes in, and then, in my opinion, it gives more power to the people who are already abusing it. But again, that comes to the question, how effective the judicial system is to enforce them, even if, let's say, assuming that the regulation is a good thing. Because I think
Yeah.
if anybody want to continue, we can do. Otherwise, we can wrap up the session if you like.
Does anybody have anything else to add to the discussion? I think we're on an agreement basically, like all of us. All right, looks like there's nothing much to say from anyone. So just from my side, thank you for being here today and adding your inputs to the discussion. Looking forward to seeing you guys in more sessions. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Rose.